Oh, hey. Are you like me and go to extreme lengths to try and find that perfect guitar tone? Well, in this week's episode of Basement Gas, we're going to look at 4 ways on 4 different budgets to try and get the tone from Adam Jones from the epic Tool. My name's Jack, and I have a serious case of gas. So before diving right into the different tones using 4 different methods, I thought it would be a good idea to actually look at what Adam Jones is actually using. But first of all, why am I making this video? If you didn't already guess, I'm a huge fan of Tool and obviously Adam Jones, and he's been a big inspiration for me. I've always been trying to get his exact tone down while simultaneously adapting my own. It's not important to just focus on your favorite artist's tone. And is this the first video of how to sound like Adam Jones? No, of course not. There are quite a few. And Rabia and Matt from Anderton's, they've done a really good one. And Gregory from Acts of Creation has done a couple. Plus he shows you how to play Adam Jones or Tool songs. I'll put some links down in the description because I've gone to these guys as well for advice and they've helped. So I thought I'd make my own video, like I said, discussing 4 different methods. So what actually is Adam Jones using? Well, his rig has not changed that much since the founding of Tool in the 90s, which obviously simplifies things for all of us. It's not like other guitarists who are constantly changing amps, constantly changing guitars and pedals. He's been pretty consistent. So what is he using? He's using Gibson Custom Shop Silver Bursts from the 80s. One of them has, I believe, just the standard stock pickups in it, and one has a Seymour Duncan SH4JB in the bridge. That is something I've also done. We'll have a look at that later. As far as amps and pedals go, again, he is pretty much stayed with the same rig for 20 years or longer. It's diesel VH4s, 2 of them. He's got one of the original ones, which were developed by Diesel here in Germany. He uses Marshall JMP super basses, and all of them are pretty much running into Mesa Boogie 412s. So that's pretty much it. And his pedal board is really simple. He's a big fan of Boss pedals. He has a Boss DD3 delay, a Boss BF2 flanger. He has a micro amp from MXR to kind of push to drive the amp a little bit more. He uses a Dunlop wah. I'm afraid I could not find the exact version. I think it's probably changed over the years as well. And then he uses the famous Heil talk box. So that's pretty much it. I'd say one of the most crucial parts of his whole signal chain, though, is a volume pedal. He uses an Ernie Ball passive volume pedal, and that's where he really gets the dynamic tones from. He's always just using a driven channel, always high, not too much high gain, but it's always very gainy. And he just uses that volume pedal and rolls off the drive. And that's how he's able to clean it up. You never hear a lot of channel switching, if at all. So that's the main part. So we're going to go through 4 methods. The first one is going full out, doing it with 3 amps, like he uses on a live stage. And then the second option will be just using 1 amp and trying to do it just with your gain channel from the amp or the overdrive channel. Third one is using pedals into a clean amp. And then the fourth one will be using a amp modulating digital system, i.e. a plugin. So enough talk for now. Let's get to that first tone. So for all four methods, I will be using a Gibson 1987 Custom Shop, mainly because it's got the Seymour Duncan in the bridge, and that's the same one that Adam Jones has in one of his Gibson Custom Shop Silver Bursts. So let's start on method one. This is going to be the high budget method because we're going to be using 3 amps, starting off with the Diesel VH2, which is the smaller brother, one could say, of the Diesel VH4, which Adam Jones uses. And the channel 2 is voiced to be exactly the same as channel 3 on the VH4, and that's the primary channel which Adam Jones uses. And as you can see on the settings, the bass is pretty boosted up, the mids all the way, and the treble also around 3 o'clock, so also pushed quite a bit, volume 12. And gain, not as much as you'd think, actually. I think with Adam Jones, less is more. That's my philosophy when trying to do this. And deep in presence, also just around the 2 o'clock mark. Now, these settings, it's hard to find pictures and documentation of Adam Jones's tone settings and pedal boards and amp settings, but this is one picture I've seen, and I tried to emulate it like this. And it gets pretty close, so that's the main reason I've used it. The second amp is the Marshall Origin 20. This is a nice budget Marshall amp that I think Marshall brought out last year. And it's, I suppose, to emulate the Marshall JMP a little bit. And again, I've got the gain roughly around the same setting. So also around the sort of like the 2 o'clock mark, or as Marshall would put it, around between 7 and 8. Also, the mids boosted a lot here. Bass and treble almost around 12%. And not much presence, otherwise it gets too fizzy for my taste. And here I've got nothing running in a signal or in the effects loop. It's just going straight from the guitar into the amp. Then finally we have the British Victory VX Kraken, and this is used to complement the Marshall sound because I'm using gain 1, which is also more of a classic British gain structure, and because there's a lot of mids coming from the Diesel and from the Marshall, I've actually scooped them here a little bit and put more focus on the bass and treble. Again, nothing running through the effects loop, just straight in from the switches right into the amp. Now to the pedal board. The guitar goes straight into the Ernie Ball passive volume pedal, and then that's going into a MXR wah. It's not the Dunlop wah like Adam Jones uses, but this one has a nicer sweep. I just prefer this one. And then this is going into some amp switching. And these little boxes are from Layla, which are really nice. They have built-in ground lifts and buffers, and so that gives me the possibility to have all 3 amps running at the same time. So that's a real nice advantage. And then at the top, ignore the bottom pedals because I'm only using the flanger, the Boss digital delay, and also an MXR carbon copy. Those two I've got in the effects loop of the Diesel, and the flanger in the front. Like I said, the Kraken and the Marshall have no effects at all. Anything that you hear is coming from the Diesel. Finally, cabinets, Palmer with 2 Eminence speakers, and then the Victory Sheriff cabinet. It has a G12 and a Celestion Vintage 30 in there, and also the same speaker as well, also in the orange 112 cabinet. Additionally, I'm also running the Diesel into the Universal Audio aux box, and that's emulating a 412 cabinet. If it's a Marshall or a Mesa Boogie, I think it's more Marshall-y sounding, but you decide if you can hear it from there. But yep, that's the cabinets, that's the speakers, that's the amps. So let's get to it. So for the second method, I am using the Victory V50, the Earl. This is an amp that has a clean channel, it has a crunch channel if you pull, and it has an overdrive gain channel. I'm not going to be using the overdrive gain channel at all, even though it has a boost. I'm literally just using the crunch channel, and it's turned up all the way. So it's got a nice crunchy sound to it. The mids, I might even actually boost a little bit more. And it's got reverb. I'm not using the reverb. So it's literally just going straight into the amp. I'm not going to be using any effects, just so you can hear what kind of a sound it has. Again, I'll be using the Ernie Ball volume pedal just to get that dynamic sound, to try and clean it up, just so you can hear the difference as well. So, yep, that's going to be running through the same cabinet again, the Victory. So we're on the third method now, and this is the one where we're going to be looking at a clean amp. In this case, it's the Fender Bassbreaker 15. You can just see the gain is really low down, the structure also on low. Bass pushed a bit, mid is, well, you always push the mids a little bit. Treble a little bit as well. Reverb I've got nothing on. Now the deciding factor here, the pedal that we're using, is the way huge fat sandwich. This is the fat sandwich harmonic saturator, and yes, it's a big boy. The reason the gain is it's supposed to be a really clean sound on the amp because we're going to just be using the pedal to really shape the tone. Now this is a real decider because it has a presence switch right here and also a resonance switch right here. This is something that not every gain pedal has or distortion pedal has, so this really helps you shape the tone a lot more. Almost like the resonance and presence especially on what you would normally have on an amp. Volume is pushed a little bit, just almost around 12 o'clock. Distortion, it's always best to use less distortion than too much, I believe. Here I'm just going to zoom in again on the Fender settings. So as you can see, the mid is boosted quite a bit, and gain really low on the gain. This is so I'll show you the clean signal first. So not too bright, just a nice clean Fender sound. Now let's turn on this fat sandwich boy. So I've pushed the tone quite a bit. I'm going to bring it all the way down, and I'm going to put the resonance and the presence at 12 o'clock, keep the distortion where it is, do a comparison again. So you can get some really nice sounds out of this. I'm going to push the resonance. Just look for that part where it just kind of... So yeah, you can get some really interesting tones out of this. This was the first pedal I actually got. I saw it somewhere on a forum. Somebody suggested it to try and get a kind of diesel, almost like a hybrid between a diesel and a Marshall. And somebody said it sounded like Adam Jones's Tool, so I tried it out. Actually, I was pleasantly surprised. So that's the distortion pedal through a clean amp, the third method. Let's move on to the last one. So the next method of trying to get Adam Jones's tone down is by using a digital method. So no amps, no real amps or effects pedals or anything here. This is all just going through your computer. Now I've got Studio One open here from PreSonus, and what we're going to be using is a plugin. And specifically, it's from Positive Grid. I've tried these out. I think they're really fantastic. There are two different ones. There's Bias Amp, which is literally just amplifiers. And then we've got Bias Effects. Now, this is a combination of guitar effects pedals as well as amps. And recently, they've also done a cross integration feature where if you create an amp effect, or you're able to simulate a real amplifier, you can also bring it into Bias Effects as well, which I thought was a really good feature because then you can use it with delay and different modulation effects, and you can really open up your whole signal chain. These two plugins, they're also actually just individual software packages, so you can just use them standalone. You don't need to use a digital audio workspace like this, but if you're recording, I definitely suggest it. So we're just going to pull Bias Effects here, and I'm just going to put it right in here to analog 1 because I've got my guitar plugged right in, just through a normal 1/4-inch jack right into my interface in the beginning, in the front, which has a preamp. And instantly we see the Bias Effects open up here, and it's just got a normal out-of-the-box one called Factory Rock Arsenal. You can see it's got like a plexi Marshall sound. But if you go into the search, so you got to be logged into this, I am. But if you go into the search and you just put in Tool, for example, you're going to see that a lot of people have actually already uploaded some really cool plugins, these really good presets. I'm going to show you just two that I have personally downloaded and tried out. I think they're really good. And so I'll go back to the home here, and I'll go to my bank 1, and here I've got Tool and also Adam Jones Tool. These two I did not create. I downloaded these, and I'll just give you an idea of what we've got here. It's actually a double signal chain. So we've got like a Tool super bass. I'm guessing this is supposed to emulate the JMP Marshall, and up here it looks more sort of like a Mesa Boogie kind of amp, but I guess this would be similar to the VH4. So let's just hit the record button and try it out. I'll turn the volume up. So yeah, that's I added a bit of delay in there towards the end because the song needed it, I guess. But yeah, that's just the one plugin. I'm going to show you the other one real quick just to do a quick A/B comparison. So let's have a look at this one. I'm actually going to add the reverb in straight away. And again, it's the 92 tread plate. I guess this is quite a popular amp modulator here, and we've got 69 plexi. So it's the sort of the diesel sound along with a Marshall. So that's the sound that Adam Jones has always gone for. It's the Marshall with a high gain modern amp. So let's try this one out. So again, it's that really crunchy high gain sound, and the great thing about this is you can really tweak it. Tweak it. I'm sorry, tweak it, not twerk it. That might be another video in the future. You can see you can do the middles, the basses. It's like a real amp. And nowadays the digital effects, I mean, everybody's using Kempers or Axe effects, so the market's really opened up for this. And the stuff that you can find from Positive Grid and any digital plugins, they're impressive. They don't have the same feel, the same dynamic, the same warmth as a real amp, but if you're just doing some recording in your home studio, this kind of stuff is perfect. I mean, I started off with this. I love it. It's really easy. If you just have a quick riff in your head, you want to quickly record something that has that already sort of amp sound to it, here you go. You turn on your computer and you've got a signal chain. You don't have to mess around with pedals and amps and speakers and annoy the neighbors. You've got this right on with headphones. So this is obviously going to be the cheapest method. I can't remember the price exactly to the Positive Grid Bias Effects or Bias Amp, but it's obviously going to be a lot cheaper than getting a full signal chain and a full amp. So I definitely suggest just trying this out. Quick and easy solution, and yeah, great sound, great recording. So I hope you enjoyed this episode of Basement Gas, of how to sound like Adam Jones using 4 different methods. I certainly enjoyed making it. If you have any questions or would like any advice, just put something down in the comments below. I'll try to help as much as I can. And my gas leak of the week, my hint to you, is use a volume pedal. I think it's really good than having a channel switching, going from clean to gainy. It gives that break, and I don't know, you hear that clicking sound. Use a volume pedal. That's really important. Either use a passive one or one that with a 12 volt power. There's a really nice one that Layla also makes, which is using magnets, which is pretty crazy, but that is really responsive. So gas leak of the week, use a volume pedal, no matter what. Please subscribe. Like the channel. I appreciate any support. And my name's Jack, and I still have a serious case of gas.